/marker. Okay, and that's gonna set up for me editing this later and then pushing to YouTube. And I can close you down, and yep, looks like everything is sending out properly. Sound should be good. It's not really peaking too much, so that's all good. So today we're going to continue working on that grid, specifically displaying the grid out to the screen, because if I remember correctly, what we ended up getting working last time on Tuesday. Let's see, where was it? It was code, mine, brcodegg, open up code here. What we ended up getting, oh, I can zoom this in, working was, let's see, I also realized I normally have this. Was a little bit, I guess the camera's a little bit higher right now than I previously had it set up, so it can't see the actual motor. Here in library, we were setting up this this for loop for the draw grid. Now this is completely incorrect logic, because I was sort of just thinking, oh, it's just a normal for loop, but that's not exactly the calculations that need to be. So this is where I wish I had like a whiteboard set up with a camera pointed at it, but I don't. I don't even have an extra whiteboard, so maybe someday I'll have something like that set up where I can go and like actually plan the thing out. But for right now, the idea is that we know the number of grids that are going to be taking place. So if I just sort of add this in here, if we want something like line space line space line space line space line space line, if we want something like this, then we know, okay, well, this is the number of pixels that it's wide, and we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 cells within here. And in the grid, we have the width, which is not the width of the, it's not the width in pixels, it's the width in number of cells. And what I could say is, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these cells. We want to divide that by the width in pixels, and that will give us the width of each cell that we want. So that's kind of what we're going for here. Now, we never actually tested to see if this number was correct, because I do sometimes get this backwards where I have, okay, do I want game width divided by the width of, or I guess the game grid width, the number of cells, divided by the number of pixels, or do I want that backwards, the number of pixels divided by the number of cells? I just constantly get this mixed up. So what I think that would be best to do is sort of like start over with this stuff. And I won't even do the Y spacing right now, because we're only going to concentrate on the vertical lines. And let's debug. So debug, and we're going to put in X spacing. This debug is the brand new macro for printing out things to the screen. We haven't tried it yet, so this will be a lot of fun. I'm going to underline context here so it doesn't yell at me about not being used. What else is yelling at me up here? We don't need a point right now. That's okay, and we don't bot locations. Okay, so we'll handle with those later. So I'm going to save you. Going to come back to our terminal. Let's make you slightly bigger, and now we're going to say, okay, let's cargo run. Now, nothing will come up on the screen because we're not trying to print anything, but we do have this X spacing, and so it's 0. 0 is not necessarily the number we were going for here. So We could try the opposite. Where's draw grid? Draw grid right here. Let's try the opposite. So instead of the number of cells divided by width, let's do self.width divided by, and this is going to be the self.gamegrid.width. Okay, 36, a much better number for us. Okay, so this gives us the spacing. So I think I want to rename this to cell width. And now that we have that, we can now say, okay, we want to, we also have the number of them we want to go through. This is the number of that. Basically, we now know if we start with 0, move the cell width over, draw a line, move the cell width over, draw a line, and we do that this number of times, then we should like reach to the end. So our for loop will count up until this, I believe. So for, we're going to say, is it going to be the self width? It's going to be sort of like our count. And I don't know if we're going to need to update this completely. So I think we're going to have a let. This is going to be mutable, the sort of total width so far. Although, I could just multiply the cell width with this, and that will get us how we're going. So I don't actually know if we need this in here. We need sort of a count. I'm going to just put count in. And we're going to start from 0, so it starts in the left line, all the way to self.gamegrid.width. Okay, so once we have that, then we want to create a point at the first spot, which is the count times, well, cell width times the count. So start in location, so that start x equals, and it's going to be a point. Good morning, Juan. All right, so we're going to have a point. Create this as new. The x is going to be the cell width multiplied by, so this is going to be cell width multiplied by the count. I am not really super happy with VS Code. It doesn't seem to let me have the it doesn't seem to let me do anything like autocomplete. So when I'm using a template like this and I tab over, I get no auto completion. That kind of sucks. The y is always going to be 0 because we're starting from the top. No more JavaScript. Well, I do JavaScript professionally during the day, so there probably will be JavaScript at some point in time because I'll probably create tutorials on it. But at least this spot in the morning for the foreseeable future, I'm planning on this being just the Rust game. But of course, there's probably web element to it, so someday there's going to be JavaScript. Okay, so that gives us a new one of these, and we just want to go ahead and convert this to a GGEZ 0.2. And we also want to end x. I almost don't think we need we just do a start and end right here. So an end equals, let's point new. Our X is now, it's going to be the exact same. So cell width times count. And our Y is now going to be the height of the arena. So self.height. And we'll convert this to a GGEZ.2. Once we have this, then we can draw our actual point. So here we're going to do a graphics dot, is it line? Oh, I think it's graphics. What did we call it? Oh no, so it's EZG graphics. And then I figured it would be a line. Oh, I don't think that's the right one. Okay, no, this is, because it's grabbing it from there. So, okay, graphics dot, here it is, line. Good morning, Camel. You'll watch me coding while you code too? Awesome. Yeah, I don't demand anybody to like sort of full attention with me while I code. I sort of figure that if some people want to like learn while I'm learning and doing this, that's great. But if some people just want to like code at work and turn the volume down and have it sort of be like you're in a I don't know, because I'm talking it gets weird, but in like a cafe where other people are working, that's okay too. Yeah, remind me, where are you guys at in Europe or more of the East Coast? Because I think East Coast of US is probably during a workday now too. 2 hours, like 8 o'clock, yeah. Argentina, okay, so that's decently far away. And you have no real vowels in your name. Good morning, Kerfy. I'll still put a vowel in there when I'm talking. But good morning, welcome to the stream. 10:45, okay, awesome. Okay, so our context, well, now that we can remove this underscore, I'm going to put context in here. And we're going to put, so our point is going to be a reference to an array of start and end. And the width here is just going to be how big each line are. I'm going to make it 1.0. And we're going to question mark this because we're returning a game result anyways. We might as well just sort of like bubble up that error. So let's see if this draw grid actually ends up drawing the grid out. Let's head back to you and cargo run. All right, perfect. It looks like we have a grid. I'm actually going to move this over to the right here. Move you over to the left. I want to see, I think it's in main. Okay, so we have like a window height, grid cells, 25. So I want to see, do we actually have 25 here? So I've essentially is 1, 2, 3. Perfect. What is this? This is, so I'm making a sort of like a bot game where you play by programming a bot. Right now, the only program that can be done is like very, very basic, and it kind of sort of goes onto the screen. So we're still super early into the game. And the idea is that you're going to place your bot somewhere on this grid that we're creating. Other people have their bots that get placed onto the grid, and then it's a battle royale. You could do 2 actions per turn. You could fire or you can move. And we'll have some drops and some other things, and basically it'll be a very interesting asynchronous game. That being said, it's mostly a learning project for me, and hopefully anybody who's sort of like following along as well. Also, I'm programming this in Rust, the language, because I want to learn it, and it's my new favorite language. Okay, so we have our horizontal grid. Now let's get our vertical grid. I guess the horizontal grid technically is correct, but it doesn't look right. So I'm going to turn you off, make you full screen again, and let's do the exact same thing now, but with the horizontal lines. You never heard of Rust before? Oh yeah, Rust is an awesome language. It's made by Mozilla, the company that makes the Firefox engine or browser, and it's very like community driven. Like I would say it's on. I don't know if I want to say it's on par with some of the other community driven languages. Like I think PHP. JavaScript. What else is there that's like pretty much open source? Awesome, you're a web developer. I feel that learning Rust has been improving my general programming. So that's one of the things I really like with it. All right, let's do the cell height. So cell height equals self dot height divided by self dot game grid dot height. That will give us the number of pixels between each cell down. Ruby is also okay. Yes, I think you're right. Python might be too. I don't remember. Rust is a backend only language, but what's really nice is that it's really easy to compile Rust to WebAssembly. So if you ever want to do WebAssembly stuff, Rust is not a terrible choice. It's actually a quite good one. Okay, so we have this. We're going to do the exact same for loop down here. So for count in 0 self dot game grid dot height. We're gonna do the exact same like start and end. So start equals point new. We're gonna want, so now we have the x and the y. So the x is always going to be 0 at this one because we're starting at the left. And then the y is going to be moving across. So it's going to be the exact same thing. We're going to start with cell width multiplied by the count. And we're going to convert this to a GG-easy 0.2. So basically a browser with Rust, or... Well, Rust is a back-end language, and it's like more of a systems language, but Mozilla is using it to build the new Firefox. And copy this. Point new. Now we want the end one, so it's going to be self.width and cell width for the y, cell width times count 2gg.2. Okay, so we have that, and now we're going to draw the line. So graphics line, pass the context. We're going to pass it a reference to an array of start and end, and 1.0 as the width. All right, what are you? Oh, okay. So every once in a while, this gets a little bit upset. Also, it looks like I did cell width and not cell height here, so that's a problem. Cell height is what I wanted to use. All right, let's get this going. One thing I really like about Rust is the community is super friendly and super super happy to sort of help out everybody and try new things. So, and it looks like we have a good grid going here. Let's make this a little bit smaller in main, and then make it easier to count. So go to main, grid cells. Let's do something like 7 grid cells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. So no matter what, we can create whatever size grid we want. He'll stick to JavaScript for now. JavaScript is good too. I find that JavaScript is very lets you program in any paradigm you want, and Rust is slightly less so. But you could take lessons from whatever language has things that make you a better programmer, and then bring those back into JavaScript. It's a very interesting idea. Okay, so we've got our game grid. We can go ahead and save this off. Game grid is printing to the screen. Oh wait, did I not? Oh, I'm gonna need to add that in later, so I can't do this right now. I'll have to do that right after the stream. Okay, what's next? I haven't really been following along with my user stories. I probably have to go remake those after I do this. What languages do I know? That's a really hard question to answer, because over the years I sort of dabbled in a large number of them. I'd say Bash is shell scripting is where I got started. JavaScript is one that I professionally work on right now. I've dabbled in Python and C. What else? Geez, I've made various hello worlds and minor debugging in Fortran and geez, what are some of those other languages? I can't remember some of them. They were weird. They're the more scientific languages that I was using when I was a sysadmin. But now I pretty much only just use Rust for personal projects, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, TypeScript for professional projects. How do I make the text made of circles you can move around? I'm not sure what you mean. The text made of circles you can move around. Are you talking about in this project here, or in general? Oh, in JavaScript? Oh, I probably won't get that into right now. It depends. There's a lot of it depends with JavaScript. So I would probably use a library like P5.js and sort of use that to move things around on the screen. Okay, so we have our grid out. I think the next thing that we want to do is see if we can get our bot to actually display on the grid. And so I've been thinking, because I had a lot of time while I was not programming with this over the break, and I think the bot itself on the first turn, so we should tell it it's the first turn, or maybe the turn number, and also it can choose what spot to go into. And we still haven't fully committed to simultaneous movements or like turn-based. If we do turn-based, then it could see like what spots are available, or we could just assign a random spot to the bot, especially if it's not a legal like first spot. Okay, so in our bot, we could actually come down. I think here's our test bot. It's a really simple JavaScript here. We get the game state. It's just grabbing its location. So it looks like we're just assigning the location right here. And then we're putting it down. Join the C# legions. I dabbled with C# when I was thinking about making a Unity game, and I mean the language is fine. I just never really got into Unity, I think. So there's that. Like, I guess I dabbled in C#, but I didn't make anything really. I just sort of played around. Okay, so right now, all we're doing is we're just saying like wherever you tell me, I'm gonna move essentially down and to the right. I guess for you, I think that's this way. I want to maybe, I think this is good enough for right now. I don't even want it to tell it to move. I'm just gonna say, okay, here's your new location. Put the new location. New location is literally what we were given. So in bot, so we create a new bot. We get the arena width and the arena height. We set the radius of the bot to be 25 right now. I don't actually think we need to worry about displaying the bot at all. This is just going to be about like, hey, where is the bot? So I don't think we need the radius. Good morning, Danny. Unity is filthy and sinful. I don't know if I would go that far. Danny might agree with you though. I heard lots of conversations where Danny tried to convince students not to use Unity for projects. Okay, so we also don't necessarily want, like this is in pixels, I believe, and that's not necessarily what I want to do. What I want, because I've now divorced the game grid from pixels, from like the actual implementation of the grid in the page, I believe what I want is just to say, okay, what X and Y as in grid number are we going to be in? So that might, in a 7x7 grid, that would be something like I want to be in 3, 5, and then that would put that in there. And so the width and height wouldn't be about pixels, because the bot shouldn't also care about that. It should just be able to say how many squares are to the left and right of me. That's all. As far as anybody can be concerned, those are pixels. They're just really, really large pixels. Oh yeah, this one. Also, I'm not showing the other side, which is, rise and shine on it, but I don't want to hold it with my right hand right now. But yeah, this is a very large mug. So in new, I want to change the X to be something in between the arena width and the arena height, which in, where is it? It's going to be in the game grid. Game grid cell, game grid. Okay, width and height is U16 here too. So this is going to be fine. So I think maybe this shouldn't be arena. Well, I guess it could be arena width, arena height. We just say like this is that, but I kind of want to change this to game grid. So like a game grid. You know what? And I could probably just put a reference to the game grid here. So if I put game grid, as we type game grid, we don't have the arena height. Cannot find, oh right, because I need to bring it in. I think we have new rules. Did I? Okay, I'm using the 2018 edition, so perfect. I think what I can do is just say they have new rules for this, and I haven't looked them up yet. Isn't a pixel kind of a square though? A minimum addressable position, as it were. I mean, I could use those things, but I think coordinates would be a better way to put it. Like, what coordinates are we on? And I'll probably basically use that when I pass into the bot. I'll just say like here are your positional coordinates. But I think I need to go out to. This is using create point for mine. Can I do that? Using create game grid like that. So this will pull in game grid for me, and that gives me the type. Game grid. The trait bound game grid bot sort of serialize is not satisfied. The trait bot sort of oh wait, because I'm serializing the bot? Where am I doing that? Serially. Oh, because I am to stringing self here. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. This might have to change a little bit. Okay, so I see what it is. If we have the game grid here, it might be best if we also have another something that we can use to then like serialize and put that in. Do I want to use a hash map for this maybe? For those of you who are not rustations, hash map is basically an object or a dictionary in many other languages. So if I have like the data that I'm going to go in, or I can just sort of pull out the specific things that I want. Because the question is, okay, if I have the game grid here, and I would probably not want to put an ownership of the game grid. I would want the what am I thinking of? I would just want a reference to it. Yeah, I did read the Rust book. Okay, so let's, for right now, I'm going to do sort of what we did previously, which would be arena, I guess like the game grid width. I don't need that. I guess it's going to be public, or I'll let it yell at me. Game, do I want game grid width? Game grid, I could do game grid width. And this is going to be probably a U16. And a game grid height. It's going to be U16. So if I begin with here, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to come back and refactor this and figure out some kind of other nice system for us to use. Right now it looks like we're just taking all of this, turning it into stringified JSON, and sending that to the bot. And we may want to eventually do something like this. Like data to send to bot. Like, and have this be some kind of a hash map. And if we do this, and then there would be, you know, whatever key value. If we do this way, then we can keep these all separate, and the hash map would be serialized. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but I am keeping that in the back of my mind. But okay, so I have we have our game grid width, game grid height. When we create a new bot here, we're getting the arena width and the arena height. I think that we should name these the same thing that we have up here. So game grid width, game grid height. Right now it looks like we are just getting a random number. And what are we using that for? I don't even see what we're using this random number for. RNG is just like completely hanging out here doing nothing. So let's get rid of you. Okay, so our location is going to be a 0.16 here. I'm thinking we'll just say this is we're going to be on 3 and 3. And this gives us our location that we're going to put in here and store up here. The radius is gone, and these are going to be different now. So now we're going to have game grid. Let's do it in the same order. Game grid width and game grid height. Okay, so that gives us a new bot. We do have to properly pass in the appropriate things. So let's see if if this works. I think it's Shift F2. Peak references. I want to find out where it's actually being called. In librs, we're calling a new bot here. So I double click in. We're passing in width and height. So when we create a new like game, essentially, we're just getting the width of the entire, but this is width in pixels. We need to make sure we do the grid first. Bots to create grid cells count. Here's our game grid. Is game grid new right here? So I believe we want to right up here is create this game grid. So I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to say let game grid equals and paste this in. Then in here, we can grab off of the game grid. So in the bot, the width, it'll be GameGrid.width, GameGrid.height. And then we could just do GameGrid. All right, so now we're properly passing in the right things into the bot. We're getting our location. I don't think that we should have the bot be drawn here. This is my new theory, is that the bot should only care about like what it's doing, but shouldn't worry about actually drawing itself out. I think all the drawing should happen in the main library here, where we have the entire drawing stuff. So we'll have draw grid. We could also potentially in the same function, but maybe also like, where's draw? Here's event handler, update, draw. So in draw, we have just draw grid. We could also have draw bots right below here. Because right now we're just calling draw bot separately, but of course we're ignoring that too. So I think we can remove this. Update. Okay, so we take mutable reference to self and our context, which we're not using, it looks like. We get, we create a serialized state for the bot. So we're gonna run our serialized data, unwrap that. Ask the bot for a new location. So we run the bot and we're gonna see what is it gonna do. So right now it's just gonna give us a new location, but later on, I think we'd want to change that as our bots become more complex, as it were. We replace the location on ourself with a new location. So if it said, hey, I want to move over here, then go ahead and move over there. I'm not going to worry about anything else right now, but I think we're going to want to make this a little bit more complicated later, where we say, hey, we need to now move the bot. Let's go ahead and move it. Also, I'm thinking we don't necessarily want the bot to hand us the location where it wants to go, but a command like move left or move up, move down. And then we want to keep in the arena. We were thinking that we don't necessarily want to keep the bot in the arena, nor should the bot really care about this. So if we remove this and all of this keep in the arena logic, the bot can now move straight off the grid. And I'm thinking that if it does that, it dies. I'm almost thinking in the same way that PUBG or at Fortnite, if you're outside of the playable zone, you start taking damage and then die. I think here it could just be, you're outside of the zone, you're dead. Maybe later we can like damage you if you're outside of the zone, and then damage you further the further away you are. But for right now, I think just you die when you're not in the zone. You fell off the flat earth. Exactly. Or we could always create whatever graphics we want to when we display the results. So it could just be the bot moves off, lightning bolt comes and blows it up. Here's our serialized data, and this is just Serde JSON taking in. We're just taking the self and then using Serde JSON to turn into a string and returning it. Strong fallout malfunctioned bot. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then we have our run bot. Now this takes JSON as a string, and we have run bot. We're calling it here. We're handing it this serialized data, the stringified JSON. And this is really interesting because what we're doing is we're an actual command. So we're leaving the Rust ecosystem here. We're running a new command where we say, okay, we just want to run shell -c for command, node, and then test bot. So this is the name of the bot, which we saw is down here as test bot. And then we're passing it in, we're formatting this, so it's turning this into a single string. So this entire right here just in a single quotes becomes that stringified JSON. So it's a little bit of a fun command here. We grab the output, and then we have our expect instead of in case something is wrong. Let location point Saturday JSON from slide. Okay, so then we get the new location that they exit out, because the bot just console logs the new location here. And so I'm thinking new location, instead this would be like commands, and then we'd have to grab commands out from that. And then we return that, which then obviously comes into here, and then we replace the location. We have save to file here, which I was using to sort of like test the Saturday JSON. I don't think I need this right now. I guess what I could do is underline this function, so that way we can use this if we ever need to, and we don't really care right now. And okay, so we have our test. So if you're not familiar with Rust, this is one of my favorite parts. Rust has testing as a first class citizen in its ecosystem. So in the same file as our bot, we have all the tests for the bot. All right, so new bot. We're not going to assert that the radius is this. And it's also not going to be arena width. It's going to be game grid width. And in this case, it's going to be 300. So this is going to be 300 cells. Game grid height. Bot location. Comparison is useless due to type limits. Oh, it's saying like, okay, I want it to be within here. When we create a new one, we're just saying the game grid location is somewhere is like 3-3. Interesting. So it's saying this is useless due to type limitations. I guess that's because it's a U16. Well, testing that's greater than 0, I think is still valid. I think this, I could see this one not being happy if it's too large, but right now, bot location, I kind of want to just say that you're going to be equal to 3. Because that's what we're setting it to right now. All right, so that's creating a new bot. Serialized state. Here we have a new bot. We have our locations. We're setting the locations to this. We're serializing the data. And then we're checking to make sure it's what we think it is. This will be fun when we change it, but this is the reason why we don't need this save to file anymore, is because we have an actual test that verifies that the JSON is correct. And then, of course, run bot. So this is another one we have to change here. So run bot, bot new, expected point. We're not going to have an expected point. Well, expected point, bot location clone. This might be fine. Expected point plus equals. We're not going to do this because expected point is going to be the exact same thing. Tests are usually just any function. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Like, do you mean the fact that I can just like I'm testing any of the functions? I do have this this config system up here, so I just label it as a hashtag and then instead of brackets test, and that will not include this code when I compile it. Okay, so we have expected point. It doesn't need to be mutable. It just means that it's really easy for me to reason about like where my code is, because I just go up and down as opposed to back and forth with different files. Okay, serialized data. So we serialize the data. We then run the bot, pass it that serialized data, and then we expect, in this case, the exact same spot. And I could go one step further because I haven't written any documentation tests yet. That will be fun when we get to that. Okay, so game grid, we're not using that right now. Draw mode and graphics, we're not using anymore. So there's that. Let's go ahead and run these tests and see if those are working correctly. Cargo test. So it looks like the testbot serialized state failed. And here's our failure. The left and right aren't the same. Oh, is it because we're expecting it to have radius? So we change this around a little bit. What we have is location and game grid width and game grid height. And we removed the radius. So let's go ahead and fix that. So down here, we have location. We do not have radius anymore. And we have we should change this to game grid. So game grid width and game grid height. Save that and rerun these tests. All right, all the tests are passing for the entire game. So that's a good sign. And what would we have to do to actually print this to the screen? Well, it won't be in here. In the library, we're going to have our bot locations. So I don't actually know if I'm going to want to have bot locations or rather a vector of bots. I'm going to leave it as it is right now because I have to like figure out why did I put it as just bot locations. Okay, so main state, we knew bot locations is just a vector of this. Also, back when I was working on this, I installed Prettier and it looks like it took over and started doing Prettier type stuff to this. Prettier is normally used for JavaScript, so a JavaScript beautification library started playing with Rust. That was a little bit disconcerting. Okay, so we have our bot locations. When we go here, it's literally nothing. So when it comes in as just probably a vector of empty bot locations. Is this in main? Yeah, bot locations is a vector of bot location, local bot examples, choose start location. Oh, okay, so I've got another bot. Oh, I know what I meant by bot locations. I didn't mean like the XY grid. I was thinking that this was going to be the actual URL of where to find the bots. And so I was going to have bot examples and something like this, which I'm not really caring about right now. I'm just using this test bot, but ooh, interesting. So I'm thinking maybe later on we'll get rid of test bot and use bot examples, and those could be tested. Okay, I sort of see what my I see what my previous self was doing. Then we have this update and everything else. And that is the sign that is pretty much coming up to the end of the stream. Yeah, it's 7:27. So normally I stop the stream around 7:30 because I've got to get ready for work and make the bus. Wandable, thank you for the host. How do I want to go through this? I'm thinking here in update in draw, we'll probably create another function like draw grid where it'll be draw. Actually, you know what? It won't be in here. In update, we need to tell the grid where each bot is. So in update, tell the grid. So I'm going to put a comment here. In fact, we have this right here. Update the bots, and then update the grid with what the bot did. And then in draw, instead of something like this, we're now all, well, none of this happens. We tell the grid to draw, and it will draw the grid out too, or draw the bot on the grid. Will the danger zone gradually be closer as the round goes, or will it show where it's going? So I haven't decided any of that. I'm sort of like going to leave that until a lot later when I find out whether or not this is how tenable of a game it is. I kind of like the idea of the grid getting smaller, but I could I don't know, like it'll be an interesting idea because we could also make this grid really, really large because bots can sort of move around on their own. Basically a long way for me to say I haven't decided yet. All right, I'm gonna leave all of this going. I'm going to add these changes here, and we will I'll get this pushed up later today. I will also export this video to YouTube and do all the normal things, but I do want to go get ready for the rest of my day, so I am going to bring the stream to a close. Right now I am streaming, I'm doing this morning stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's a change from previous because I do have some other things going on at this time in the morning on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But that being said, I expect to just continue on working on this on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. With that, I hope that you all have a great rest of your day and a weekend, and I'll see you next time. And all right, this computer. And have a good one.